Ever wondered why risk management is so critical in data processing? Well, let's step into the world of data processing and uncover the significance of understanding risk. In the realm of data processing, risk refers to potential harm that could result from the unauthorized or inappropriate use, disclosure, alteration, or destruction of personal data. It's like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode if not handled with care. Now, why is managing this risk so important? The simple answer is compliance and protection. GDPR demands that organizations manage risks effectively to ensure the security of personal data. But what types of risks are we talking about here? Well, it's not just about the legal risks like fines or sanctions for non-compliance. There's more to it. Consider reputational risks. Imagine the damage to your organization's reputation if a data breach occurs. It's like a stain on a white shirt, hard to clean and leaves a lasting impression. Then there are financial risks. The costs associated with data breaches or non-compliance can be massive. It's like a hole in your pocket, draining resources that could be used elsewhere. And let's not forget operational risks. Disruptions to business operations due to data breaches or system failures can be detrimental. It's like a cog in the machine coming loose, affecting the entire operation. So, understanding risk in data processing is not just about identifying potential threats. It's about comprehending the ripple effect these threats can have on an organization. It's about recognizing that these risks are intertwined, each one capable of triggering another. So, understanding risk in data processing is the first step to protecting your organization and complying with GDPR. It's about being vigilant and prepared because in the world of data, it's always better to be safe than sorry. But how do you assess these risks? Luckily, GDPR provides a framework for this, and that's exactly what we're going to delve into now. GDPR outlines specific requirements for assessing risk in data processing activities. So let's break down these requirements. Firstly, it's important to understand that risk assessment isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Depending on the nature of the data processing activity, the level of risk may vary. That's where the Data Protection Impact Assessments, or DPIAs, come into play. A DPIA is a process designed to help organizations systematically analyze, identify, and minimize the risks of data processing activities. It's like a safety net, catching potential issues before they become larger problems. However, DPIAs are not always required. They are mandated in situations where data processing is likely to result in a high risk to the rights and freedoms of individuals. This could be due to the scale, scope, or context of the data processing. For instance, a DPIA might be necessary when launching a new product that collects sensitive customer data, or when implementing a new IT system that processes personal data on a large scale. Additionally, the GDPR risk assessment framework serves as a roadmap. It guides organizations through the complex terrain of data protection, providing the necessary tools to navigate potential risks. And most importantly, it underscores the importance of proactive rather than reactive risk management. After all, it's far better to prevent a data breach than to deal with its aftermath. The GDPR risk assessment framework is a key tool in managing data processing risks. It enables organizations to stay on the right side of the law, protect individuals' rights, and maintain trust in today's digital world. Now that we understand the framework, how do we identify these risks? A good question? Identifying risks in data processing activities is a multifaceted process. It involves thoroughly understanding the nature of the data you're dealing with, the systems and processes in place for handling that data, and the potential vulnerabilities that could lead to a data breach or loss. One of the most common risks in data processing is data breaches. This can occur when unauthorized individuals gain access to sensitive data, often due to weak security measures or system vulnerabilities. This could lead to the exposure of personal information, resulting in legal repercussions, reputation damage, and financial loss. Another significant risk is unauthorized access. This can happen when individuals who do not have the necessary clearance or permission gain access to sensitive data. This could be the result of weak access controls, lack of staff training, or insider threats. Data loss is yet another risk that organizations must consider. This can occur due to hardware failure, software glitches, human error, or cyber attacks. Losing data, particularly sensitive personal information, can have severe consequences, including legal penalties, loss of trust, and financial setbacks. To effectively identify these and other risks, it's crucial To understand the data flow within your organization, you need to know where your data comes from, how it's processed, where it's stored, who has access to it, and how it's protected every step of the way. Understanding your data flow allows you to spot potential vulnerabilities and mitigate them before they become a problem. For example, if you notice that a certain database contains sensitive information but lacks robust security measures, you can take steps to strengthen its protection. In the end, identifying risks is not about pointing fingers or assigning blame. It's about finding areas of improvement, strengthening your data processing activities, and ensuring the privacy and security of the personal information you handle. Identifying risks is a proactive step in managing your data processing activities. And remember, this is not a one-time process. As your organization grows and changes, so too should your risk identification efforts. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve. So we've identified potential risks, but how severe are they and what impact could they have? The severity and potential impact of identified risks are crucial components of any risk assessment strategy. It's not enough to simply identify the risks, we must also understand their potential implications. Let's start with severity. This measures the potential damage a risk could inflict upon your data processing systems. Severity can be categorized in varying degrees, ranging from minor to catastrophic. For instance, a minor risk could result in a small data loss, while a catastrophic risk could lead to a complete system shutdown. But how do we measure severity? Many organizations use a risk matrix or a scoring system. These tools help to quantify the severity of a risk by assigning it a numerical value. The higher the score, the more severe the risk. Next, let's talk about impact. This refers to the potential harm that could be caused to data subjects if the risk were to occur. For instance, a data breach could lead to identity theft or financial loss for your data subjects. When evaluating the impact, it's important to consider two key factors: the likelihood of occurrence and the potential harm to data subjects. The likelihood of occurrence is the probability that a risk will actually happen. This is usually expressed as a percentage. On the other hand, potential harm to data subjects refers to the possible adverse effects if the risk were to materialize. Understanding both the severity and impact of a risk is crucial because it helps to prioritize your risk management efforts. For example, a risk that is high in severity but low in impact may not need to be addressed immediately. Conversely, a risk that is low in severity but high in impact should be dealt with promptly. Remember, the goal of risk assessment isn't to eliminate all risks. That's practically impossible. Instead, the aim is to understand and manage the risks effectively, reducing their potential harm to a minimum. Assessing risk severity and impact helps prioritize your risk management efforts. And with this understanding, you can allocate your resources wisely, focusing on the risks that could cause the most damage. Now comes the crucial part: mitigating these identified risks. Mitigating risks is a crucial step in risk management. It involves implementing measures to reduce the likelihood of a risk occurring or minimizing its impact if it does occur. In the context of data processing, there are two broad categories of mitigation strategies: technical and organizational measures. Technical measures refer to the use of technology to protect personal data. For instance, encryption is an excellent way to ensure that even if data is accessed without authorization, it remains unusable to the intruder. It's like locking your valuables in a safe. Even if someone breaks into your house, they can't get to your treasures without the combination. Similarly, access controls are another technical measure that can significantly reduce data processing risks. By limiting who can access certain data and tracking who has accessed it, you can both prevent unauthorized access and quickly identify it if it does occur. On the other hand, organizational measures involve policies, procedures, and training. Staff training, for example, is a vital tool in risk mitigation. By educating your team about the importance of data protection and the role they play in it, you can significantly reduce the risk of data breaches caused by human error. But mitigating risks isn't just about responding to identified threats. It's also about proactively designing systems and processes with data protection in mind. This is the concept of privacy by design and by default. It means that privacy considerations aren't an afterthought but are built into every stage of your data processing activities. For example, rather than collecting as much data as possible and then figuring out how to protect it, Privacy by design encourages you to collect only the data you need, reducing the potential harm of a data breach. Mitigation isn't a one-time task, it's an ongoing process of identifying new risks, implementing measures to address them, and evaluating the effectiveness of those measures. It's a cycle of continuous improvement, always striving for the highest level of data protection. Mitigating risks is at the heart of GDPR compliance and data protection. But our job doesn't end at mitigation. Risk management is an ongoing process. Indeed, it's essential to continually monitor risks and the effectiveness of mitigation measures. In the dynamic world of data processing, risks evolve and new threats emerge. Therefore, the mitigation strategies we've put in place must be scrutinized regularly to ensure they're still effective. Just as a doctor would monitor a patient's condition after prescribing treatment, we too must track the health of our data processing activities. This involves keeping a close eye on the risks we've identified and the measures we've implemented to counter them. If a mitigation strategy isn't working as expected or a new risk has emerged, we need to know promptly to respond effectively. Moreover, our risk assessments aren't static documents. They're living, breathing entities that should reflect the current state of our processing activities and the broader data protection landscape. As our operations evolve, the risks we face may change. Similarly, changes in legislation or industry best practices might influence the risks we need to manage. Regularly reviewing and updating our risk assessments ensures they remain relevant and robust. But we're not alone in this process. Risk management is a collaborative effort involving various stakeholders. These include data subjects, the individuals whose personal data we're processing, and supervisory authorities who oversee our compliance with data protection regulation. Engaging with these stakeholders can provide valuable insights, helping us to understand and manage our risks more effectively. For instance, feedback from data subjects can shed light on potential privacy concerns we may have overlooked. Supervisory authorities, on the other hand, can offer guidance on regulatory expectations and best practices. By fostering open dialogue with these stakeholders, we can build a more comprehensive and effective risk management strategy. In conclusion, risk management doesn't stop at identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. It's an iterative cycle that involves constant monitoring and reviewing to ensure we're always one step ahead. Constant monitoring and reviewing keep your risk management strategy effective and up to date. Let's not forget the importance of documentation and reporting in risk management. In the context of data processing, documentation is like your roadmap to risk management. It's where you record your journey of identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. As an ongoing process, it's important to keep detailed records of risk assessments, mitigation measures, and monitoring activities. Why do we document? Well, it serves a dual purpose. First, it helps you keep track of your actions and decisions. It allows you to revisit your steps, understand why certain choices were made, and learn from them. Secondly, and perhaps more critically, documentation is your tangible evidence of compliance. GDPR requires organizations to maintain comprehensive records as proof of their compliance efforts. This means you need to document not just what risks you identified and how you mitigated them, but also how you monitor those risks. Reporting is essentially the communication of your documentation. It's about sharing your findings, actions, and results with the relevant parties. In the case of high-risk findings or data breaches, you're obliged to report to supervisory authorities. It shows that organizations have a proactive approach to identifying and managing risks, and that they're taking the necessary steps to protect personal data. Remember, documentation and reporting are not just bureaucratic formalities. They're integral parts of your risk management strategy. They help ensure transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement in your data processing activities. They need to be updated, reviewed, and refined regularly to reflect changes in your data processing activities and the broader data protection landscape. Proper documentation and reporting are your proofs of compliance for GDPR. So, what have we learned about risk management in data processing? We've unpacked the concept of risk in the realm of data processing and highlighted its importance for GDPR compliance. We've delved into various types of risks: legal, reputational, financial, and operational, and the need for a GDPR risk assessment framework. We've explored the role of data protection impact assessments in identifying and assessing risks, and the criteria for when they're required. We've recognized the importance of understanding data flow within an organization and how to identify common data processing risks, such as data breaches, unauthorized access, and data loss. We've learned techniques for assessing risk severity and impact and how to use risk matrices or scoring systems to prioritize these risks. We've also discussed strategies for mitigating identified risks, the concept of privacy by design and by default, and the need for ongoing risk monitoring and review. Remember, effective risk management is crucial for GDPR compliance and protecting the rights of data subjects.